All right, so we are live now, and good morning to everyone who's on the West Coast, everyone who's on the East Coast. Good afternoon or good early noon, right? We are here with Lynne Johnson, tech columnist for the Ebony magazine, and we're going to talk about how do you get pressed for your startup today. So, Lynne, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Okay. Hello, everyone. As you said, I'm Lynn. I go by Lynn D Johnson, little
Mhm.
D, little D. Um, but anyway, so I've been doing this column, the upload on ebony.com now for almost a year. And basically, it's with the column, we're trying to show the diversity in the tech space that there are African Americans, Africans, Caribbeans who are starting tech businesses, and some, being very successful at it, right? Others are just learning the ropes right now, but there have been a lot of really successful people already. So that's what we're doing now. But so I guess you want me to talk about my career a little bit about in the space, or
Yeah, could you go ahead and talk about your career? I just got, and I apologize because we talked about this before we went on air, but I have tried a new nanny. She just sent me a text, but talk about your background, and I'm going to run and grab the kid.
okay, all right, okay, all right. So, background. Wow, my background goes way, way back. So, I actually, before becoming a journalist, I actually thought I wanted to be in tech. I wanted to be someone doing information systems, probably something working around computers. I studied computers really early on in the late '80s, and I programmed programs like Fortran, learned BASIC, COBOL, Pascal, learned how to do a couple of other business applications and functions on computer systems back then. Worked on Unix. I even punched on punch cards. I don't know if you guys are aware of what punch cards are out there. And even worked with some data processing systems that were out back then. Even went, all the way to where I had a kind of like an externship with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we built one of the first local area networks within the government at that time. I was helping them do that with some consultants, government contractors, and that's the kind of work I was doing for a long time. But I was always a writer at heart, and one day someone said to me, you should be pursuing writing. What is this computer thing? And I'm like, no, but I really love computers. But I ended up combining the two by learning desktop publishing early on, and then when the web came about, being on the web very early on, I worked at blackplanet.com, which there'd be no Facebook today. There'd be no, well, there was Friendster back then and MySpace and all these other things, but there'd be none of this stuff today if it wasn't for a company called Community Connect that had three ethnic social media networks. And BlackPlanet.com was one, and I worked on that one. There was Asian Avenue, and there was also Mi Gente, which was a Latino experience. TV One owns Black Planet today. It's also called Interactive One, TV One, Radio One. But I worked at that, and really, really, I worked at some other websites earlier to that. But those early websites, there weren't a lot of destinations on the web at that time. E-commerce wasn't like it was today. So I think those years that I worked, and there have been other community sites. There was something called Net Noir, which was a sort of like a social media network, but it was also a lot of content, like kind of how Black Voices became, and it was a site that AOL ended up buying. But there were a lot of things like that going on at that time, and so I really, really, I would say I really, really cut my teeth on how to be a digital strategist, how to do community work, how to be a marketer, and how to be a journalist on the web back in my Black Planet days. And from Black Planet, I went on to run digital for Vibe and Spin. I did community and content for Fast Company's website. I did some early mobile applications prior to the days of iOS and Android. And then even while I was at Fast Company, I founded the first New York City Android developers group. I was a big Android advocate. And back then there really weren't. There were a lot of urban sites that were founded by or funded by, I could say, big media corporations. Like Viacom had one. There was, I think, an HBO one, and there weren't, there just weren't. There's a lot of urban stuff, but there weren't like today. Where I think we're seeing, kind of a rise of women and African American entrepreneurs in the tech space because making tech products is a lot easier than it was back then. Back then, you really had to be a coder. You really had to be. There was no way around it. And today, it's just so much easier. But, so I came up through that media space, but then also worked, at some digital marketing shops and digital public relations shops, and have continued to write, which has brought me, to where I am today.
So thank you. I mean, definitely, like your experience and your depth. So I'm having a new co-host who decided to join us. So right now, and you've talked about this, I've read some of your columns. One of the big things right now is diversity in tech, diversity and inclusion. And you've been, like I said, you've been in this industry a long time. What are some of the things that have changed in the conversation around diversity in tech?
I think the biggest thing that has changed is that these big corporations actually are talking about it. They weren't talking about it back then. It's not, no one was looking at the numbers to seeing how many people were in employ at, big companies as far as women employees and as far as people of color. This has become a new conversation, I would say, ever since these numbers have been released and people have been concerned about these numbers. I think also what has changed is, there were always people of color and women working in tech. It's just that I would say a lot of them were working in government or in, places like NASA or in government.
Or government contractors, because that's where I was at for a long time.
Yeah. Right. So, or either working with like a Verizon or something, telephone company or utility companies, old guard type of companies that, when this web explosion happened, I think that web and mobile especially, and as we became the leaders of using, as people of color and women became the leaders of using a lot of these web and mobile tools, that the conversation kind of switched. It's like we're using these tools, but these tools are not servicing us, or they're not considering us when they build these tools. So I think that's why the conversation became, I think, important,
And so I know that's a lot of what you do is actually to help continue that conversation through the upload. Can you talk about your primary focus and goal of the upload?
So with the upload, it's really about changing the narrative and changing the narrative to show, because one of the main things, I was hearing was, oh, there is no African American who raised this much money, or there is no woman who raised this much money, or there is no African American who, they don't code or they don't do, I hear things like that, and it frustrates me. So I wanted to change this narrative, and I was so fortunate to have this opportunity. Probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I reached out to an editor at Ebony and was like, you guys need some tech stuff. I want to do some tech stuff for you. And he was like, yeah, we're just not ready right now. And then, about a year ago, he reached out to me and he was like, there's advertiser interest. There's a column we want to do. I don't know how you want to take it, but there's a column that we want to do, and you kind of have open reign to do some things with it. They had some things they wanted me to specifically do, but I kind of had open reign. And so again, for me, it was just about changing the narrative, telling stories, telling origin stories for one, right? And also just showing the diversity in the space that exists and the diversity of products, right? Products that solve a range of problems.
And I just want to, if there are people watching now who have questions, you can either ask through if you're watching through the Hangout on your computer, you can There's a Q&A interface. There's a 9 square icon at the top of your screen. You click on that. It opens up an icon and click on the Q&A, and it'll open up a box on the right-hand side of your screen. You can ask questions through that. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can submit your questions through Twitter. Just add us at HBCU to Startup. And so what was interesting that you talked about when you first talked to Ebony about a couple years ago, they said they weren't ready for it. What I've noticed, and I would love to hear your experience, is that I've been a developer for like 15 years now. And one of the cool things that has happened over the last couple of years is that people are now really tuning into tech thanks to the media, where before people had no idea what I was doing. You would hear like, what does Hadia do? I don't know. She works with computers, and it would be this broad like job description of just working with computers. What has been your experience with some of the things that you have shown where tech is sexy now, and everyone knows about tech within the last couple of years? Have you seen that?
Yes, and I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Tech is sexy now. Tech used to be thought of as this nerdy, kind of uncool, geeky thing, and whereas now tech is like a sexy thing. And again, it's about, because tech is like the backdrop to our lives now. It provides utility, it provides entertainment. There's nothing we do without some kind of technological interface nowadays, right? And so it's like cool. It's like when you see someone like, I don't know. I mean, you see these entrepreneurs now who are starting these companies, and they wear hoodies, and they wear, they can wear their sneakers, and they look like hip hop, right? In a way, right? So, and then there also became this kind of like intersection of, I think, entertainment in tech, which had a lot to do with people paying attention, and then just more media coverage. And I think there was this rise in the 2000s. There was this rise of like tech websites, tech media outlets that are just covering tech. And then there are all these startup challenges that started to happen as well. Back in the 90s, this kind of stuff didn't exist that you see today. The ability for people to just build an app really quickly, get to an MVP, and then, get a little bit of money just for doing going to a challenge, right? And winning an award, right? And there just weren't these kind of opportunities back then either. And so now today, back then it was like your path into tech was like you went to college and you studied tech and then you became a technologist. Nowadays, you can go online and, do a code academy class or do something like that, or go to General Assembly or go somewhere else, and you could take a class and learn how to code like that. The language is easier too. It's more accessible, and these types of careers are more accessible, I think.
And so you actually touched on something briefly that I've been dying to have this conversation with, and I can talk to you because I know that you're a music lover, hip hop lover. What are some of the commonalities? And I try to make analogies all the time. What are the commonalities between like hip hop and the evolution of hip hop and this new tech? Have you noticed like some of the common trends?
Yeah, it's like, it's almost like when you build an MVP, it's almost just like how the rappers used to sell the CDs out of the back of their trunk. It's like, because you're going around and you're telling all your friends, and you're getting your friends to sign up and use the beta, so you can, reach some kind of growth spurt, and, start to have other people take an interest in it, and you're going around word of mouth. So I think, social media lends itself as well to kind of how like hip hop, hip hop early days, hip hop artists would just take their music through the streets and go and do shows here and there. And so to me, it's like this kind of grind and mentality you have to have with this entrepreneurship is so similar to the early hip hop entrepreneurship, like people like Ludacris, people like Trick Daddy, who their whole career started because of what they were doing on their own. And there's other people. Like Jay-Z started his own label because no one wanted to sign him. And I mean, that's what a lot of you guys are doing today. You're doing your own thing because Google's not hiring you, Facebook's not hiring you. So you're starting your own business. You have your own idea. And that's kind of like that whole Jay-Z thing of starting Rockefeller. It's like, I can do this myself. And I don't have to have someone else pay me and tell me what to do and own all of my intellectual property when I work for them, right? It's like I own my own intellectual property, right? And it's the grind, it's the hustle, it's the grit. It's just so similar. It's like it is hip hop, you know? Uh-oh.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
I
I got
got
him.
you. I got you.
Okay. No, so I mean, and that's a good segue because we talk about the grind and the hustle. And then after, if you're building an MVP, just because you build it, that doesn't mean that they come. So this
Right.
is the segue to how does someone get pressed for their startup, and when is the right time actually to get pressed for your startup?
Right. So when you're an MVP, I think you haven't reached critical mass yet or whatever, and you haven't gotten like someone like Horowitz and Anderson to fund you yet. You're not at that level yet, and but you really want to get the word out through press. I think it's about your own content strategy first. Like you have to put some effort into your content strategy, and that's how you use social media. That's how you use. That's where things like SEO become very important. Sometimes you have to spend a little dollars on marketing too, on Facebook or on Instagram or other places where your core audience is, right? Also, word of mouth with, you can always have like an influencer program or an ambassador program where you get college students to try out your product and you do a college tour with it or something. It's just like it's getting the media to pay attention in some kind of way. Like even doing Kickstarters sometimes. If you raise a certain amount of funds on Kickstarter, the media will pay attention. But also, there are some journalists that hit them up on Twitter. Hit them up. Say, I'm doing this thing and I want you to pay attention. And just keep showing what you're doing. Put up some slideshows on SlideShare, of what you're doing. Go speak at events, right? That's a main thing. Speaking at events is really primary. And, just all those small things because the thing is, a TechCrunch, a Pando Daily, a Recode, those kind of sites, they're not going to pay attention to you until either you reach critical mass or you've raised, some significant funding or from a significant partner or someone like Magic Jordan has invested in your company, some celebrity or something like that. No, I'm serious. It's like either celebrity investment, major, or you were like a top person who was at 500 startups or someplace like that, some other kind of incubator or whatever. Um, that's the only way the media is going to. So you have to make your own content and you have to let your story be known. Which, you guys, if you're of the millennial generation, you know how to do that. You know how to use social media better than anyone, right? And, I'm listening. I'm here. I'll hear you. I'm Lynn at LynneDJohnson.com. And then, TechCrunch does have someone. And, Huffington Post pays attention to these kinds of stories too, and so does I'm trying to think, Fast Company. Fast Company is now starting to pay attention to these kinds of stories. So there are media outlets that are trying to pay. They can't ignore us because like we're like a force now, right?
What are some of if you, and this is off the top of your head, I don't know if you could think of anyone right now, but what are some of the early startups or companies that you've been a fan of in terms of you've seen their content strategy and you're like, oh, that's a company doing it well. Is there anyone that you could think of?
As far as startups,
Or
um,
even if there's another company. Okay, go ahead.
no, and this is someone, but this person has major funding,
Yeah.
but the content that they're doing, Tristan Walker's Bevel Company.
Mhm.
Oh my God, their content, they're killing it. I
Mhm.
mean, it's like, it's he's made relationships with barbers, his primary audience, like one of his primary audiences. He wants people at home to use it too, but you're going to use something at home if your barber tells you. So he's made these relationships with barbers. He goes and he tells his barber stories. There's a lot of video content. He does blogs. Can you hear me? Okay, I
Yeah, I
thought I
can
was
hear it.
breaking up. I
No,
thought
I
I was
can hear
breaking
you.
up.
I'm going. I'm muting on and off. That's why.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So, Tristan Walker with Bevel is definitely doing it to the utmost. I'm trying to think who else. Well, these a company I recently interviewed. Oh my God, I can't remember the name of the company right now. But the company was they have an app that rewards students for good grades. I don't know why I can't think of the name of the app right now. I just did this interview a
I'm
couple
gonna have
weeks
to
ago.
I'm gonna have to check that out and look it up. We'll definitely would love to talk to them.
Okay, so this is like I'm having senior moment here. No, where I can't remember the name of the company, but but that's also because I just talk to so many people sometimes. So
Yeah.
like but them the way they're doing, I think that's the other thing too. How you tie social media into the product itself, enabling the users to be able to tell your story or share your story through social media, that is so crucial. Building social media sharing and the way you build social media sharing into your product. So with that particular company, God, it's killing me. But I'm on the phone, and if I flash now to look it up, you might lose my face. So, um, but uh, that particular company, the way they've built social media and enabling the users to tell the story, I like the way they're doing that too, because they have sort of like automatic messaging built in that you can alter if you want to. But I feel that's crucial as well.
So without naming any like names, have you seen a company or like what a company doing it wrong? Like, is there a wrong way to do social media or a wrong way to do press? Not naming names, but if you could talk about what not to do.
I mean, what is not to do is to do something that's off brand, right? For instance, if you have your brand social media accounts and Prince's death does not fit into your brand, you don't have to put it up on your social media account. If it's off brand, you don't have to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's those kinds of things. It's trying to, I've seen big companies without naming names that have messed up. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was at Grammys, and Pharrell had on the big hat, and every company on social media tried to get in on that. And there was one company that tried to get on that it just did not make sense for them. And like even the tagline that they used, it just didn't make sense. So, I mean, that would be the kind of thing. It's like stay on brand. What is your brand about? What is your brand promise? What is your and if you don't know that yet, you really need to think about that. What is it that your brand is promising? And all of your content should revolve around that. If it's about motivation, then do motivational content. If it's about, if you stand for diversity, then your content should be around that. If you stand for just fun and foolishness, then all your content should be around that, right? So, like right now, I'm working with a company that's an app for teens to do something that's really fun and entertaining and engaging. So all of the content we're doing to work on our growth and marketing strategy, all of the content is just really silly content that we're doing. That's what we stand for. We're not trying to do anything else, right? Um, so that's one thing that's definitely that can be wrong. The other thing is too, be careful about how the media labels you, because the media will try to tell your story. Um, and sometimes media puts headlines on stories for the clickbait, and sometimes those headlines are not really what you stand for. So you have to be careful when you give your story away too. You have to be careful you want to make sure you're dealing with responsible outlets, right? Like, yeah, you may want that BuzzFeed click or whatever, but it's like, what are they saying about your brand? So you have to be careful about that too.
And I think that's a good point. So right now we're in the mix of like diversity in tech is now hot. Diversity in tech is is sexy to, I guess, majority media outlets. How does someone who is a Black founder, one, just brand their company around what they're doing and the good work that they're doing, and can step away from being I'm a Black founder? And the question is, should they even step away from being I'm a Black founder? How does that work as branding? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it depends. It works for some people. If your company is about diversity and diversity is sexy right now, but I think, if you're trying to raise major funds and your company is a product that, whatever your product is a universal product, and it's a product that's for everyone. No, you don't want to be pigeonholed in, I just do black things, or I just do urban things, right? You don't want to be pigeonholed as that. So really be careful again about how you position your company. If it's something that you want to open up to the broader market, then be careful about just saying, I'm a black founder, right? I mean, I think it's good because we do have to build critical mass with that, because that's how more people are going to get funding. If that's even your goal, because I know people who have started companies without, like, a major VC backing them, and who have been able to raise significant funding to be successful. I think, you have to think about what you want to be about at the end of the day. Are you a black company, or are you not, right?
All right, so you talked about getting content and having that marketing strategy, and before you reach out. So now you're at the point as a founder that you actually want to reach out to some of these press outlets. What are some of the practical tips that you can give about reaching out to media outlets?
Okay, you cut out for me a little bit, so I didn't hear everything.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I was just asking, what are some of the practical tips about reaching out to journalists or media outlets for media coverage?
So, right, so some of the tips include, people get press releases all the time. They get hit up on social media all the time. Journalists do. So it's like having a unique story to tell. Make sure you have a unique story. So either your product is very unique, or your origin story is unique, right? Or you just reached a major threshold, like you had, 5,000 signups, 50,000 signups after you just launched 3 months ago or something like that. Those kinds of things, because again, people get hit up all the time, so you have to lead with what the story is about. No one wants to dig for what your story is. You have to supply the story. You have to let a journalist know what you're about and what's important about you. You have to have a unique selling proposition, your USP. What's going to make you stand out? Why do I want to tell your story? Why do I want to listen to you? Right? So that's the main thing. You can hit up on social media. You can send a press release. But the thing is, you've got to have a story to tell. Otherwise, you're going to get ignored.
And so what are the things that you look for when people send you pitch stories? What are some of the things that you're looking for? What are the things that impress you the most?
The things that impress me the most are, first of all, like a unique technology. First of all, do you have some kind of technology behind your company that's just so different than anything else that's out there? That your product is not just something that could be an add-on to something else that already exists, right? So is that something that's really? I also look for something that's really solving a crucial problem. And some stuff can be fun or whatever, but I tend to gear more towards things that are solving a crucial problem, because I don't think we have enough of those. Like, we have enough Facebooks, we have enough first world type products, right? I'm looking for things that are solving issues, and that stand for something. So if you notice if you look at the uploads, if you notice a lot of the people that I've talked to, either they're disrupting a current industry or business model, like the dude who started Maven, right? It's about selling hair care products. It's helping people in hair salons be able to set up their own shops and sell hair care products and earn another revenue stream. But he's sort of disrupting an industry with that company, because there was no one doing it this way before, right? All of this kind of selling hair, you go to a beauty salon and you buy hair, or you can order online, but there's no guarantee. He's offering a guarantee as well. It's like you could wear the hair, and if you don't like it, you can send it back and get your money back. I mean, that guarantee that he offers, no one else offers that guarantee, right? And no one else had thought of helping the hair care salons the mom and pop shop, uh, her set up a web or mobile store. Um, so disruptors. I look for disruptors. I look for things that are different. Um, that's really it. And I also look for interesting origin stories. Really interesting origin. What I mean by interesting is like sometimes people who don't have a tech background who decided to do something, or who decided to learn to code, or who decided to do something in tech to solve a problem.
And then this is another question: is all press good press or bad?
Does all press get press? No, but I can tell you that when you make a mistake, sometimes
I think I'm.
and when you do something good, right?
You're right.
That's crazy. But sometimes you have a faux pas.
Mm-hmm.
You will get pressed faster than when you do something good. So, but the thing is
Right.
this: here's the key. Here's the key: be able to turn that mistake around really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and you will really get pressed. Turn that mistake around. Like I was reading someone's story the other day. They invested $60,000 in a CTO, so the CTO ended up being awful. They wasted money.
Oh.
They messed up their product. They messed up their product, right? But then they were able to turn that around really quickly, offshore, get some help offshore really quickly, to ramp things up really quickly. And they had a story there. They had a
Mm-hmm.
story. Yes, I failed at losing this money that investors gave me, but I turned it around for cheaper, and now I got more users. And my acquisition rate for users was really low, right? So I was able to save money in the end. So stories like that, if you make a mess up, but you can turn it around, that's really helpful.
Yeah. So, like I said, you've seen a lot in this industry. You've seen companies come and go, and you've seen the technology change over the years. Any predictions for what we'll see over the next couple of years? Like what's hot and or what's like what are some of the predictions you can make over the next couple of years?
Some of the predictions, I think, you know, first of all, AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, and I've been talking about augmented reality for years now, but AR is changing a lot of things, right? It's going to change the way we do a lot of things. Right now, people are thinking it's just about gaming, but the health field is going to change. It's going to change a lot of things. I think right now, hot fields for people to get in tech, health tech, education tech, right? There's not a lot of diversity in those spaces. Those are definitely things that are going to change because it's like millennials are looking for different ways to bank. Millennials are looking for different ways to invest their money. Millennials are looking for different ways for health and fitness well-being, right? So those industries, and then the other thing is too, the older generations, as people having careers after retire, so the employment field is going to be a really big field. But I think, AR and VR are just going to change everything. So any kind that you can qualities into what you're doing, I think will go a long way.
Okay. And then just sorry, I have this is me balancing it out right now with this little boy. He's not giving me no break right now. But other than go ahead. What'd you say? Are you still there? Seems like I may have lost you. Hello? Are
Hello?
you back? Yeah, I can hear you now. Are you there?
Yeah, can you see me? You can't see me anymore?
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I can see you.
Okay.
All right. No.
Wait. I do want to say, audience, please excuse me. I'm in transit to somewhere, so if I'm cutting in and out, I'm sorry, but I really wanted to, make sure I talk to you guys today.
Yeah, but you know what? This is the new way of working, right? You're in
Right?
transition. I have kid on my lap. And
Right.
all because of technology. So
Yep.
this is the new way of working. This is what we do.
Yep.
But any tips for people of color who are thinking about starting a company right now?
Okay, I lost you. Any tips for what?
Any tips for people of color who are thinking about starting a company right now?
Okay, the tips for people of color trying to start a company right now is get yourself a mentor. That's the first thing I would say. Find someone who's already done it, and try to get some sit down time with them, some phone time with them, whatever. Someone who's already done it in the space, and really talk to them about what it was like. Learn from their mistakes. That's what I'm seeing now. I'm seeing that people who are growing by leaps and bounds are the ones who are doing really good at networking. So it's not just networking. It's also networking with the right people, going to events, being out there. You can't just live in a bubble in front of your computer all day. You have to get out there. You have to network. You have to meet people. You talk to people. You have to ask people for help. You cannot be afraid to often afraid to ask for help.
May have lost you again.
Failed.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. What was the last thing you heard?
Ask for help.
Ask for help. So I said, a lot of times people of color and women are afraid to
Mm-hmm.
ask for help because we feel like we have these superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be afraid to ask for help. And sometimes help comes from where you least expect it. A lot of my help over the years actually came from white males over 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't always from my own people or
Yeah.
from women.
Right.
It was white males over 40. And did I turn that help down? No,
No.
right? So the thing is, again, you cannot stay closed up in a bubble. You have to be out there talking to people, meeting with people, telling people what you're about, what you're trying to do, and you have to not be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Definitely shout out to allies to the community. They definitely help us a long way. I was talking to a friend the other day. We were talking about the backstory was we were expecting, we were talking to another black sister, and we were expecting her to help us out in a way that she didn't help us out. And we were thinking, well, you know what? Maybe it's too risky for her. Like she's just trying to get into the door. Whereas someone else, someone from an allied community, they were in a position where they had privilege already behind them, where they could go ahead and take that risk and step out as an ally. So
Right.
definitely, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're totally right about that. So shout out to our allies. And then, there's also sometimes too, and it's unfortunate, there's the crabs in the barrel
Hmm.
mentality, right? So it's like, I'm the spook who sat by the door, so I can't let any more spooks in. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes that happens too.
Hmm.
We should be uniting and helping each other lift up, and most of the time, but end up having to ask someone else for help outside of the community. Don't be afraid to do that.
Hmm.
But the thing is this too, you have to be a giver as well. Givers definitely do better in life. I don't know if you've read the book called Givers, but there's a book called Givers, and you should read it because the more you give, the more you receive. And the more you give really from your heart, really wholeheartedly, the more you'll receive. So the kind of thing I tend to do when I'm asking for help one another, right? It's like, how can we help one another? What can I do for you? Here's what I need, but what can I do for you,
Right.
right?
Hmm. And so that being said, that's actually part of the show. Every time we have a guest on the show, we ask them, what can we do as a community for you? What is the biggest thing that for myself or people who are watching, how can they support you in what you're doing right now?
The best way to support me is feeding me stories. Keep feeding me stories. You can hit me up on social media, on most social media channels. My name is Lynne Luvah, and let me spell that. It's LYNNELUVAH. Or you can hit me up on email, and that's Lynne, LYNNE, at LynneDJohnson.com. Hit me up, share more stories. I'm looking for stories. I'm looking to share your stories, even with, if it's something ebony.com can't do, I will help you get it other places if possible. You know, I do know editors at other publications. I've been a freelancer and a journalist, and I know other editors and writers. I'm also, they need help with meeting, right? So, and it's something for me, interestingly, you know, I've seen a lot of journalists become VCs, right? So something I'm trying to do, and I'm putting the word out there now, I'm trying to become a VC and an advisor. And I don't have money. I'm someone who comes from, you know, a modest background. But I'm trying to get in that door because I want to bring more you guys up, right? And, you know, again, I've been in this tech space for a long time. I think I have a really good understanding of what works from a business case sense. I really understand business, and I think I can help a lot of companies grow, you know, whether as an advisor or being part of a VC firm, and if even not as a firm, you know, just being able to have that opportunity to be an advisor.
That would definitely be a good look, and I would love to. I don't know. Have you talked to Monique yet? Monique Woodard?
No, I have not.
Okay, maybe you guys should. I know it's been hard to get her down since she's been at 500, but definitely there's a few people who have stepped out, Monique being that. So, you know, if you haven't, do you have your contact? I can do an introduction if you don't already have her contact.
And as a matter of fact, so what you can do for me too, give me her contact because I would love to do a story on her.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll do that afterwards. And that's part of what we're trying to do here, like make as many connections as possible, so that we can uplift each other all together. So definitely, I appreciate your time this morning. I think this is like your vacation with the family. So I appreciate that and appreciate your family for lending you to us this morning. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that you want, any final thoughts before we end today?
No, I mean, the one thing I would say is don't be afraid to try. If you have an idea, if you have a thought, don't be afraid to try. It's not too expensive to try nowadays. So definitely try hard, right? And be on your grind, and, you know, be honest with yourself. When you think it's not going to work, be honest with yourself, but you can pick back up and try again, you know? That sounds like a gospel song. Right?
We fall down.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, you have a good one, and thank you again.
All right, take care. Thank you.
All right, have a good one, everyone. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.